All right, so don't need this microphone. Nice. Everyone, yeah, thank you for inviting. I think the better name for this presentation was like performance score better than contribution. But anyway, yeah. So this is about the elevation of performance, because like big problems not only for Estonian companies. In any company usually is like everyone is struggling with that. Here I'm gonna talk about like data approach. I like data, taking data, and I managed data engineering teams. So yeah, we will talk about that. So bit disclaimer. I will talk about my personal experience, and this approach is basically my approach. It's not developed by me personally. It's a group of people, but I driving this in my last company. So yeah, I will talk about that. So first a question, yeah, Nicolas Cage, I think would like to ask you guys. First of all, who has some experience in team leading? Raise your hand, please. Just want to ask. All right. Half, less than half. All right. But from this group, who evaluated performance for your subordinates? Raise your hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not so much. Not so much. All right, 5. So you see that it's not so simple, right? It's not so popular, and here in Estonia too. And let's then start from the basics. Most of the presentation will answer questions why we need this, why we need to measure performance, and then in the end we will talk about like technical part, how exactly to measure that. So first of all, I would start from responsibilities. So, well, here is CTO, but any manager, any executive has some responsibilities. And if we are talking about the CTO, for example, one of the biggest is strategy and delivery. So you need to define strategy, you need to define roadmap, you need to execute roadmap. CEO always expecting this from you. Of course, for example, for the matrix org structure, it might be a bit different, but in general, it's like one of the crucial priority and responsibility for the CTO or VP of engineering, for example. Number 2 is organizational design. What means? Of course, you as a lean leader, manager, you need to think about the organizational structure. It might be based on a product, might be based on something else, depends on the business, but in general, this is one of your crucial responsibilities too. Define the structure, restructuring the teams, and like in an optimal way. We will talk about optimal way a bit later. So number 3, career development. I put it as like one of the most important, why not always seniors, like executives, take like much attention on that. It's anyway, especially for the executive, usually they are managing engineering managers or team leads, right? They don't think like so much about their career path. So, but this is one of the important. Career planning, mentoring, constantly give feedback. With the feedback is the biggest problem. But we'll talk about that later, and I will show how the performance framework give you this opportunity constantly to give feedback to your subordinates. So, we described 3 main responsibilities. Let's a bit deeper dive in each of this responsibility. Just I want to show you why performance framework is so important here. Fair performance framework. So let's talk about the strategy. Let's answer the question, what is that strategy, right? Strategy answers question why. Why we should do, I mean not why, but how. How to achieve some targets. And in an optimal way. What means optimal way? Optimal way means you invest less and get more. But how you can get this? Well, the obvious answer is, I think nobody will argue with me, is get the best talents, right? And detect best talents in your company, because you need to focus mostly on your best talents. You can hire them, of course. If you want to know a bit more about the hiring, you can look at my previous presentation on DEVCLUB, where I talked about the hiring, but here we will talk about the framework. So, best performance, how to detect best performance. If you can detect your best performance, that you pay more, but the value, they bring you value like in 2-3 times more than you pay them. So usually any leader is focused on the best performance, right? And how you can do it? Only with really fair framework. Why? Because those people, they don't accept any lying, right? They want like fair approach. Next question about the organizational changes. So, how you can change any structure in your organization if you don't know like what the performance is? First of all, you need to measure performance, then do some changes. After that, measure again, and then see. If performance is better, then that means you did the right job. You did the right decisions. If not, then it's bad. So, framework you need anyway here. And career development. Often it's emotional decisions about the career. Like promotions, because well, this is a good guy, he did really good feature, yeah, I need to promote him, or he did it like for many times. Now, if you can really have a fair structure, you need a fair framework for that, and of course it gives you like more insights who should be promoted, and who is performing better than others. So we like understand that we need a framework, right? Let's talk about the classical approach. Why it's not unfair? Well, that's my personal opinion, frankly. You might argue with me, but I think like next few things that I will show is like my personal opinion. First of all, last impression has the most value. Well, what I mean, imagine engineer is doing great all the year or I don't know quarter. He's doing very good, but in the end of the quarter, before the performance review, he messed up somewhere, delivered something wrong, like bad feature, and all of that. What's the impression of the team lead here? I will not give him any bonus. He like mess up, and he don't care. This is just human psychology. So one of the problem here is this last impression is important in classical. I mean, for example, 360 feedbacks. You always have to describe like what you did, what the good you did. But your team lead always will argue, well, you messed up in the end. So no, you will not get the bonus. Next, often changing priorities. Yeah, in our like current market, delivery is really important, and changing of priorities is so often. So sometimes like you start from the one roadmap, you finishing your quarter with another roadmap, you have OKRs, you started from one OKRs, you like finishing with other OKRs, so it's a full mess because of that. And if you're constantly jumping from one task to another, in the end, to the performance review, you have frankly nothing to show to your team lead, because, well, I worked on that, then you told me to work on another that, well, I switched, and in the end, when they ask you like, so what's your value in company, you frankly have nothing. And this is the problem. And number 3, some of the companies, they very data oriented, yeah, and they like to calculate and count commits, tasks, stories, bugs, right? That is really easy to manipulate. Just create a script, generate tasks, on tasks you generate bugs, bugs you convert to, I don't know, again to some features and all of that. So you can generate activity easy. So frankly, this kind of approach has two problems. So I want to ask, like, is in fact, is any really fair framework here? And my answer will be, it's tough, yeah, like this small guy says, it's tough, but there is no silver bullet here. Yeah, no silver, but we can fix at least those three problems. At least. That's like very often happens. Let's go with the framework. I will describe what kind of KPIs you need. Well, it's just general approach, and how you should measure that. Then we will go to the process. So 5 basic KPIs, indicators: timeline, discipline, quality, initiative, and teamwork. Well, very basic, but like it's mostly enough for start. Maybe in future you will decide like to add something else there, but let's go for that. Timeline. Nobody likes timeline, right? Nobody likes to commit to some deadlines. It's hard, but anyway, timeline, I would say it's expectation of the team lead or reviewer on your task resolution. What I mean, this KPI always, so you have to answer like on one question. Were tasks finished on time, earlier, later, and you just put like above expectations, on expectations, or below expectations. It's kind of easy. Usually like every team lead can do this. It's not so hard. Next, discipline. Discipline. Actors don't like discipline, and software engineers too. Nobody. In the end, please. Discipline. So, why it's important? Sometimes you need an engineer to be on team meetings, important meetings, with vendors, maybe with colleagues. Sometimes you need, if you are tracking time, that is very good. You're like one of the not so many companies. Not only in Estonia, but you need to track time. You expect that engineers are tracking time on your tasks. So all of that gives you answers like, is it on target, or on expectations, or below expectations? Well, I cannot imagine above expectations, but my approach is on or below expectations. You can put for the engineer. Quality. Well, quality is very simple and obvious, right? Is it like tested well? Does the task returns back like from the QA, or maybe engineer just missed something, business logic, like generated a lot of bugs on that. So it's again up to team lead. Above, on, and below expectations. Initiatives. Very tricky indicator that shows us is the engineer trying to do something like to improve in general. So for example, he has some ideas, he describing documentation, passing some courses, maybe additional describing some articles, like, I don't know, filling documentation, all of that, it's like on or above. Well, it might be below if you expect from your engineer this kind of like initiativeness. If no, I personally know, I feel that initiative should be like volunteer in a company, but you might have like different opinion on that. Teamwork, yeah. How much engineers are doing code review, how they speak with colleagues, it can be below the target. Why? Because if you have bad feedbacks on your colleague in the team, that means it's below. And that's how you see during the review, evaluation, you see some of the colleagues that like maybe not so polite or for example they are rude, might be. So in the end what we have a matrix like that. Matrix, you have like 5 indicators. You have below, on, above target. I put just numbers -10, 5, 10. Why? Because, well, I think it's the most, you can put 1, 2, 3. It's up to you. I will explain why I put like -10, 5, 10, because in the company where I implemented that, we mapped this to the bonuses, monthly bonuses. So that's why I put like 10, 5. But the crucial part here is weight. Weight put the leader, and they defined by the necessary. For example, if you need in your company more innovation, put weight for the innovation. If you feel that team, for example, discipline is not so great, then put weight for the discipline more. For example, that's my indicators. My last company, when I put like, for me timeline was the most important. That's why I put 40%. But you might have different, that's fine. So, imagine you have this matrix, you have like basic frameworks. Now how the process should be organized in general. You have sprints, you might have just Kanban, you might have like different development process, but in general, well, bad practice in Agile to have one-on-ones, right? So it might be periodical, once per 2 weeks, once per week, or in the end of the sprint, up to you. But each of this iteration, you need to put the score for each of those, like in the matrix. Why? Because in this case, you negotiate with the engineer what was good, what was not. You give them constantly feedback. The biggest problem in industry is it's really hard to give feedback, especially bad feedback, right? So here, you like one by one, just explaining like what was wrong. Exactly, in the tasks. So, after that, so for example, week by week, you put the score, right? And in the end, what do you have? You have weekly score, you have monthly score, you have quarterly score, you have early score, and you can map this score to some bonuses, to some rises, whatever. It's up to you. But it's really data-based. Why? Because you're constantly measuring performance. So, in the results, what we have? First of all, we fixed the problem with last impression. Why? Because you are doing this often, you are doing evaluation very often, and in case if engineer messed up in somewhere in the end or in the middle, he just had bad scores somewhere in the end. But in general, a very score will be kind of high, right? The same is changing priorities. If you are evaluating every week, it doesn't matter what are the priorities today or tomorrow. You just always have the score. And indicator manipulations is really hard. Why? Because it's always negotiation between the team lead and engineer. Yeah, so we like kind of, I feel we like fix it all of that. But it's not everything so good as it seems. Of course, there are caveats. Let me tell a bit that. What are the caveats? Yeah. So, first of all, it works very well for the small teams. Up to 8 engineers, maybe up to 10. It depends how your company is. But the crucial part is here, your team lead should be hands-on. Why? Because he will evaluate every week work of the engineer. He should know that this kind of task can be done in 2 times faster than it was done. He needs to know that. And he needs to like argue in case if they cannot negotiate, right? And the second is it should be mapped to some bonuses. It might be quarterly bonuses, it might be It might be like monthly bonuses. In a company I worked, we had monthly bonuses from 5% to 10% of the salary. And I would say it works very well. I see here some guys that work in the company, they can say it worked or not. Yeah, and of course there are some corner cases. If you try to implement this kind of framework, you will see it will appear many questions, but let me try like some basic questions to answer you. After that I might answer like questions if it will still will be. But yeah, let's go through some edge cases. Number one, what to do with vacations and day offs, right? We have deadlines, we have tasks, but engineer wants to vacation, and like frankly, it's legal, right? He has legal right to that. I frankly just put on target everywhere. Like in this matrix is like 5.0. You might just cannot track that. I feel that the vacation is a right of the engineer, like legal right, and it should be tracked too. Next, engineer team lead cannot negotiate with engineer. Yeah, it happens. It happens, and it's very interesting, because in this case, of course, they have to escalate this to you as a leader. You dive in the problem, you look at that. Of course, you should have expertise, and you review all of this. Why the team lead put this number, and you make decision. That's why it's very important, and I think it's described later, that each below or above target should be described by the team lead. It just will help you to understand why one thinks that can be like, why the one thinks that is underscored than team lead. And one more thing, it's important that in this case, if such cases happens, that means there is some problem in the team. If they cannot negotiate about the score, that means maybe they have just bad relations, and maybe some other reasons. It's just a signal for you to check what's going on in the team. Next, unusual high and low score. Yeah, it might happen too when, for example, engineer and team lead, they have a deal. Like, for example, I don't know, for money or something else, for bonuses. And that's why the leader who is driving all this initiative should track and check if anybody has very high score. That means it might be a deal. That's why, let me repeat again, ask team lead to describe all below and above targets. That's how you can understand. And you will talk with the team lead. Maybe they have a deal, but maybe the engineer is perfect engineer, best talent in your company, who knows. How to evaluate team lead performance? Obvious question, right? So this framework is about the engineers. It's not about the team leads. I mean the evaluation performance of the team leads. In my personal opinion, team lead is accountable for the roadmap execution. He has a roadmap, he's driving that, he has sprints. You need to evaluate based on a delivery, team lead. Engineers, based on this framework. Next, can score affect the career path? Well, it's obvious, it should affect. Why? Because if engineer performs very well, he needs to be paid more, right? He needs to be promoted. If he's doing very good, he should be promoted from the middle to senior and lead and so on. Or team lead, maybe, if he would like to go to management. So this framework will give you insights that, like, who should be promoted in your company. And yeah, that's it, all our cases. Now I listen to your questions. Thank you all. Yeah.
Turn on. Should be on. Give me a second. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Andrei.
Okay.
Again, please raise your hands. Who's in the leadership role at work? Okay. Who would put such a framework in practice at their team? Please keep the hands up. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, the company that you implemented this approach, was it a product company or outsource company? Like,
Product company.
Can you as well repeat the question so that it gets from the audience?
Yeah, so the question is where this was implemented in software development company or maybe outsource company. This one was implemented in software development company, but I feel that it works for the outsource company too.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, over there.
Is there a risk that the team lead will discriminate some members of the team? How to deal with that?
Yeah, so the question is again, it was a slide about that, but let me repeat. So the question is, can like team lead discriminate somebody in the team? Of course he can. That's why in corner cases was a slide when it says it should be escalated to the next level, to the CTO or I don't know, engineering manager. So, and engineer and team lead can escalate this problem of negotiation to the next level. And he should do this. And then engineering manager should come and dive on the problem and make decision.
Thank you.
But yeah, they can.
Over there. Please. Yeah. Oh, the other guy. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is about like the frequency of the cycle. While I agree that it's good to have feedback which is very, iterative and which is ongoing. My question is, would having a very formalized frequent feedback create some undue anxiety for the people who are engaged in this, because they might feel they are like in school, they have a test to pass like every week, and they, instead of focusing on doing their work, they need to think about how to score well on each of the components, and likewise would it cost extra overhead for the person who needs to evaluate, because as you mentioned, they have to have a very detailed overview of what happens on this very huge scale.
So yeah, I would again long talk, but let me in short repeat the question. So the question is how often it should be evaluated. Like what's the problems there? Like I mean, as it affects the team lead, how how much time he might spend on that, right? So I will tell about my personal experience. So, for example, infrastructure teams, they worked on, well, in my previous company, they worked in Kanban, classical Kanban. So they had one-on-ones every week, and team leads just evaluated every one-on-one their work. And it's during the one-on-one. They have one-on-one like half an hour, and it's like fast. They are going through the tasks they did, evaluate, that's it. For the engineering team, for example, product teams that are doing features, they worked in sprints, different ways. Sprints, 2-week sprints. So, for example, my engineering manager decided they would like to evaluate every sprint, not every week, but every sprint. So, each 2 weeks they evaluated. After, in the end of the sprint, they saw what was planned, what was achieved by the engineers, if he worked on the tasks from the sprint, or might be he worked on something else. And based on that, in one-on-one, they talked about this, and it's the same, I don't know, half an hour in general of one-on-one. And in data engineering is the same, weekly basis. That's how it worked. I hope I answered your question.
Well, the concern was rather about having I would say not an evaluation, but the grading part that frequently, because people they might feel anxiety of being graded like on that many number of items, and they have to be worried to perform well on each one of them every week or every 2 weeks. So wouldn't that
I would say
the major work like for
should they care a lot about that? Let's keep in mind that this is if you think that, well, if you present this approach as a additional bonus, not like it depends on your salary. I mean, so it can be two options. First, if you try to map performance to the salary, one approach, right? And I think it's bad to do it this way. I think the best way to use this framework is based on a bonus system. You just give additional bonus to high performance. So frankly, today this month I got a good bonus, next month I might not get a good bonus, but it's just a bonus. It's not money that I expect from the company. That's important. So in this way, I don't frankly so much care to have 100% plus. Yeah, I will get a bonus. Yes, somewhere maybe I was not so effective, somewhere good, but in general my manager is happy with me. If I will work hard, I might be promoted based on my score. So something like that. So engineers should not care so much, I think. And I think the team lead should explain this to engineer. It's the main reason is to resolve the biggest issue. Constantly give feedback to engineer from team lead. The biggest problem that exists in software development usually. Yeah. I hope I answered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matea.
Please, if there are other questions.
Yeah, sure. You go. Yeah.
Okay, shortly. Is there any chance to automate any workflows in this evaluation process, or to get more objective data? Because I see the human factor is too much human factor here.
In my experience, it's always human factor, because it depends on character of the team lead. Usually how this happens, for example, for the hiring, how team lead hiring engineers. He always doing interviews, and he understands do I like this guy or not? Do I want him in my team or not? So always team lead finding team on good for his character too. Because on my practice I saw really rude team leads. They are really effective. They deliver it in time, but they are very rude. And they found engineers that are happy to work on this team. I saw team leads that they are very soft, they are very polite, and they found engineers in their team the same. So both approach works. It's all on you where to work, in what team, who is your team lead. It's up to you. So yeah, this is the answer.
Thank you. Okay, Matt. Yeah, you go.
How frequently, in your experience, do team leads rate members being on target or above or below?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How frequently do team leaders rate them being above target or on target or below target?
So what's the normal distribution of...
Normal distribution. It all depends on the team leads, of course. If it's a very small team, well, usually it's most of the engineers usually were on target. I would say 70–80% on target usually, and 20 are above target. Below target, it's kind of rare, because in this case the leader will have questions okay, your engineer is below target constantly. Let's deep dive in the problem. Let's talk with him. Let's understand why he's below the target. Maybe give him some education. Maybe maybe in the end we just need to fire him. If it's constantly just not doing good job.
So it's not just about the bonus.
Yeah, it's tricky question. Tricky question. Yeah,
May I ask a question?
please.
If you were an engineer and I was your engineering manager and I would put such a framework in practice, how would you approach rigging it? How would you rig it? How would you play it? How would you cheat on it?
How I would cheat on it. So, first of all, how I would cheat. It's really hard to cheat the system, frankly. It's developed by me. Why should I tell you? It's hard. Yeah, so what's the approach is? It might be like, I can generate like a lot of activity and somehow will be really hard. It depends on you, how you like understand me, my character, and how you know how I can perform and how I am really performing. And I might be trying to let's say generate a lot of activity and somehow like explain you, trying to convince you that I'm really good a lot of job. We'll show you how I updated documentation, we'll show you all my tasks that I generated, commits, all of that. And we'll try. But if you will be smart enough, you will detect that and you will understand, oh, you like cheating.
Do you want to know how would I approach hacking this framework?
Yeah, please.
If I was an engineer and you were my engineering manager, so one of the areas that was evaluated there was teamwork.
Teamwork.
And it seemed to me that it was very kind of vague territory, something that is very hard to objectively measure. So what I would do, I would just make friends with you. You like steak? We would have steak every Sunday with the finest wine you can get. And we would really have absolutely awesome time together. And I guarantee you, I would get on teamwork, I would get the best score ever.
That's why teamwork has only 10%. So you will be not able to cheat me. Yeah, you will get all constantly above target for teamwork, constantly. But your general score will be like, around 5.0. Because it's only 10%. The timeline for me was the most important. Because it's really easy to measure. And quality, it's easy. That's why it's 40 and 30%.
Understood. Thank you. Andrei?
Question. Hi. Thank you for the presentation. Does the complexity of the task impacts the score? Basically, do we differentiate between many small tasks done on time versus one foundational, uber complex task?
Again, So, for example, in a team there are senior person, middle person. You put different tasks to different persons, and if you put to the senior person really hard tasks, difficult tasks, and you see how he is doing those, is the on target on your, again, it's on team lead opinion. That's why in a caveat I added that the team lead should be a leader of the team. He should be hands-on. He should know he definitely should be a senior person. You cannot put middle engineer as a team lead. So the team lead during the negotiation decide that, you did good job, you did really tough tasks, and that's why I put you above target or on target, depends. So again, human factor exists here.
And we should assume that on target is a high level.
Yeah.
It's not
a question from your please.
I like you have a lot of questions, that's great.
First of all, Matej, time doesn't matter. Second, about the hacking your framework again. So you are referring to on-target score, but how do you measure on-target score, and can engineer make on-target below as it should be? How to say,
rig the estimates. So you give too much leeway in the estimates in advance so that you're comfortable delivering it.
Yeah, so basically, in your eyes, my on target is a bit different.
Yeah, that's again, it's a negotiation. In you, as an engineer, feel that you are underscored. You feel that your team, your team lead is, let's say, bad guy, right? You raise this question to your leader, and you can tell them, hey, like I did very good job. Look at my tasks, but my team lead is just saying, no, I am not like good enough. Please help me. And this is signal for the leader. That means it might be really it's a real problem. Might be, or maybe you just you think you're too this. Ambition then, who knows. So again, team lead, if you cannot negotiate with a team lead, the leader is involved and he make decision. If you don't agree, then the solution can be you can just go to other team with better team lead, or I don't know, fight with your team lead. I don't know. Beat him in dark place.
That's very actionable.
Right.
So, over there, one.
Yeah.
Should a team lead have one-to-ones with engineers weekly? As I see
Leader, you mean?
No, team lead.
Team lead. Should he what? Can you repeat?
Should he or she have one-to-ones with engineers weekly?
It depends on your flow. For example, product teams, my product teams, they had one-on-ones once per 2 weeks, in the end of the sprint, after sprint. Because in the one-on-ones they like talking what was done good, not right, and they like give each other feedback about the sprint. In other teams, for example, infrastructure, that they use Kanban, they did it once a week. As often you can do one-on-ones, as better is the communication between you and engineer. Some of the team, for example, did once per month. I had such team, but team was really huge and disbalanced. That's why after that split the team to smaller parts. But frankly, it's up to, I would say the better to have like in the end of something, some iteration. You're finishing iteration, you're doing one-on-one. If your iteration is 1 week, fine, do it every week, why not? If it's up to 8 engineers, that it's like classical approach in the industry, to have like up to 8 subordinates, then you spend in a week, how many? 2 hours, right? Not 8 hours. 8 hours, 1 day, 1 day. All other 4 days you can spend on some other tasks. So it's not so hard, frankly. I hope I answered your question.
Kirill.
Yeah, because I already hear, like, or feel the pizza smell. That would be my last question, right? So I was working in different companies, and the moment a company tries to implement a framework like that, I have a feeling that the culture in the company decreases by a lot. I mean, like this environment, this atmosphere of people chatting, discussing ideas, and so on, it becomes kind of competition, and from a bad sense, competition, because everyone is scored frequently. Now, it's a good question. So I know there are many engineering managers here. They raised their hands. Once Stanislav was asking the question, would we like to implement a system like that? No one raised the question. So, no, don't raise the hand. So, from your perspective, why? Just self-reflection, as honest as possible. Why people don't like it?
Well,
managers don't like it.
First of all, managers should dive in this, right? It should be I would say that if you are building lean team, lean organization, you are interested in doing something like any performance evaluation. If you're just sitting on your let's say desk and just doing your usually daily work from 9 to 5, then maybe you don't need that. So I would say any motivated person in the company, any motivated manager should think about the performance evaluation. And you can start from the just bonus system, and only after that think to, let's say, spread it to something else. But I frankly, I don't understand such people. I would say like that. I always in my practice always try to understand why somebody performs better than another one. Why it's like, how it can be measured. So maybe because I just like this like data approach and like to understand is everything good or not in my organization. If I would not care, then maybe I will just will not care and will not do anything. Yeah, something like that. Thank you all.
Thank you.